A very good evening, Doctor. Today, my group is going to present about iterative DNS query. I am Darshini Devi Shanmuganathan, matrix number 271385. Next. Okay, I'm going to present about the meaning of iterative DNS query. So an iterative DNS query is a request of a website name or uniform resource or known as URL that the domain name system DNS server responds to the IP address from its zone file if possible. If the server doesn't have any IP address requested, it forwards the request onto another DNS server. Iterative DNS queries are also known as non-recursive DNS queries. Iterative requests are used to return information from servers that can't sustain the workload of performing start to finish query responses all the time. This could be a DNS server of a domain that is prioritizing traffic to its sites or to a route hits. Next. Next, I'm here to explain why my group choose iterative DNS query as our group project. First, to find out how iterative DNS query works. Second, to find out the advantage of iterative DNS query. Third, to find out the weakness of iterative DNS query. Fourth, and the last one is to find out the issues of iterative DNS query. Next. That's all from me. I'll pass to.
Okay, my name is Magisan Anakimurgan. My matrix number is 264522. And this is iterative DNS query diagram structure. Okay, now we're going to see about steps of iterative DNS query. First, the client sends an iterative DNS query for www.cisco.com, and then the DNS resolver receives the query. If it doesn't have an answer for this query already cached, it will be continue by asking a root server where the name server for site are. If it is cached, the answer will be written here and the process will terminate. The DNS resolver could also store cache entries for this site, TLD name server, and the Cisco site, authoritative name servers, and skip the appropriate steps. And the third step is the root server return the IP address for the site name servers. It also can catch the site name server for future usage. Thank you.
Okay, next I will explain the step by step. For the iterative step, next step is the DNS resolver now has to ask the site TLD name server for the IP addresses of the Cisco site. Alternative name server, it also can catch the site name server for the future usage. Next, the site TLD name server return the IP addresses for the Cisco.site alternative name servers. And then the DNS resolver can catch the Cisco.site alternative for the future usage. And then the DNS resolver asks the Cisco.site alternative name server for the resource record for the entry www. The Cisco site alternative name server return the resource record for the entry www. And the last step is the DNS resolver catch the response and return it back to the client. That's all for me.
Okay, my name is Sharifah Nur Sakina Emalin binti Said Maza, and my metric number is 270546. I will explain about weakness, issue, and advantage of iterative DNS query. For advantage, DNS query is in an interactive query request made by a local DNS to server to the root. TLD and authoritative servers can be cached inside the local DNS. Iterative DNS query are faster since it contains more entries cached in the local DNS server, allowing the client to directly communicate with each DNS server involved in the lookup. Once a server has received an iterative query, it will either return the IP address and of the requester hostname, or it will issue a referral, which means that it will produce the address of a DNS server that you know. The client is then able to directly issue an iterative query to this referral server. Next. Okay, for weakness of iterative DNS query is in the iterative query, the client sends a query to the server. If recursion is disabled and the server cannot answer the query, the server will respond with a referral answer. The client will then use that information to query another DNS server. This process will continue until a server responds with an authoritative or negative response, or until the client runs out of time. Here, the burden is on the client resolver the query. Next. Okay, for issue of iterative DNS query is iterative requests are that for the former, a client will make one request to a server and wait for an answer, while the local DNS server often communicates with other DNS server to get the answer. In other words, both client to server and server to server communications must be supported. That's all from our group. Thank you.